So hello everyone, welcome to part 2 on the series on computer networks. So I hope you have already watched part 1 of this series, and if you haven't, just check out the link in the description and you can watch part 1 where I have discussed the basics of computer networks. So here in part 2 I'll begin with transmission media. So what is transmission media? So before going to the technical terms, let us understand it with the help of a real life example. Suppose you need to go from a place A to a place B, and the distance between place A and place B is, let's say, 15 kilometer. For going from place A to place B, you will require something, and that something is called as the road. So road is the medium which is taking you from a place A to a place B. Similarly, the data signals should be sent from one computer to another computer. So how will the signals be sent from one computer to another computer? They are sent with the help of transmission media. So it generally refers to different types of wires like copper wires, fiber optic cables, radio waves and microwaves. Copper wires, fiber optic cables, twisted pair cable, this comes under wired media, and radio waves and microwaves, they come under wireless media. So the term media is used to generically refer to the physical connectors, wires or devices used to plug things together. So from now on, whenever I'll use the word transmission media, you should know that I am referring to the different types of path through which these signals will travel. So let us go to the types of network based on transmission media. The types of network may be wired, like twisted pair cables, coaxial cables and optical fiber cables, or it may be wireless, like radio waves, microwaves or satellite communication. Now let's go to them one by one. So in case of wired transmission media, there are basically three types. First is twisted pair cables, second is coaxial cable, and the third is your fiber optic cable. Let's begin with twisted pair cable. So from the name it is evident that here the cables will be twisted. Pair means there will be two cables and they will be twisted around each other. In case of twisted pair cable, the cables are twisted around each other in the form of a double helix structure, like the structure of a DNA. So here two insulated copper wires, you know the meaning of insulation. If an object is able to carry electricity from one point to another, it is called conductor, otherwise it is called as an insulator. So it consists of two insulated copper wires which are twisted around each other in the form of a double helix structure. Now the question is, why these wires are twisted around each other? These wires are twisted around each other to reduce crosstalk. Now let us try to understand what a crosstalk is. Let's say this is just a single wire and you are sending data from A to B. Now during transmission, if some signal leaks from this particular wire, so if you are sending the data as, let's say, xyz, it might, so you might get only xy but not z. Why? Because it might be possible that the data z has been leaked from this wire. So in order to prevent that leakage, what we do, we take another cable and twist it over the first cable. Now what is the advantage of twisting? In case of twisting, what happens? Suppose this is the main wire through which signal is passed. Now if some signal gets leaked from the first wire, it will be transferred to the second wire, and then it will again be retransferred to the first wire. So this phenomenon of bleeding of a signal from one wire to another, it is referred to as crosstalk, and crosstalk is not a desirable phenomenon. In order to prevent this leakage from one wire to another, these cables are twisted around each other. So here if I say send XYZ, even if Z gets leaked somehow, then it will be caught by the second wire. So there are two types of twisted pair cables. One is unshielded twisted pair cable and other is shielded twisted pair cable. So unshielded twisted pair cable, it offers greater protection from interference and crosstalk due to shielding. So an additional layer of shield is present in shielded twisted pair cable to protect it further from crosstalk and interference. Interference means intermixing of signals. So it does not happen in case of shielded twisted pair cable, but it is heavier and also costlier as compared to unshielded twisted pair cable. Its use are in local telephone communication and for digital data transmission for over short distances up to 1 kilometer. So the range of twisted pair cables is very less. It is only up to 1 kilometer. So you will generally find twisted pair cables in local telephone communication. For example, suppose you stay in a hotel. In hotel there is room service, and for room service they provide you with a landline phone. So you can request various services, and for requesting for those services, the pair of cable which is used, it is known as twisted pair cable, and because the range is very less. So for greater distance, it is not recommended to use twisted pair cables. So what are the advantages? It is easier to install and maintain twisted pair cables. You can just buy it from the market and install it by yourself. Second is it is simple and also inexpensive. It is low weight. Next, it is suitable for small local area networks, which are it is suitable only for small local area networks. But remember, it has certain disadvantages. What are the disadvantages? It is not suitable for long distance communication due to high attenuation. Now let us try to understand attenuation. What is attenuation? Suppose this is one computer A, this is another computer B. Let's say the distance between A to B is 15 kilometer. So what is the range of these twisted pair cables? It can carry signals only up to a range of 1 kilometer. But if you connect twisted pair cable for a range of 15 kilometer, what will happen? After 1 kilometer, the strength of the signal will get reduced, and this reduction in signal strength is called attenuation. So we can define attenuation as reduction in signal strength as the distance increases. So suppose let's try to understand with a different example. Let's say this is me and this is you. If the distance between both of us is 10 meter, you can hear my voice pretty clearly. Now if you move away from me, let's say now you are at a distance of 100 meter and I'm speaking with the same intensity, what will happen? You will not be able to hear my voice clearly as in the previous case. Why this is happening? This is happening because of attenuation, means the signal strength is reducing. So it happens in case of networks also. So this is one disadvantage. The second disadvantage is low bandwidth support. Now what is the meaning of bandwidth? Bandwidth means the maximum data transfer rate of a network or internet connection. So if the data transfer rate is high, then the speed will be high. If the data transfer rate is low, then the speed will also be low. As the bandwidth is low, so the speed is also low, which is the third disadvantage of twisted pair cable. Let's move on to the next one. It is coaxial cable. So coaxial cable, as you can see in the diagram, there are various layers in coaxial cable. The central layer, which consists of a copper wire, is used for the carrier of signals. And what does the other layer do? The other layer acts as a shield to prevent the noise by redirecting it to the ground. I have already said what noise is. Noise is unwanted signals. So if you are sending XYZ and while receiving, if you are getting XYZ and along with that if you are receiving PQ also, PQ is undesirable, means PQ is noise. So these noise are prevented with the help of the other layers. So coaxial cable consists of a solid copper wire core which is surrounded by a plastic cladding shielded with a wire mesh. What is the use of this shield? The use of this shield is to prevent the noise by redirecting it to the ground. Its use is in TV channel communication. So if you have cable TV at your home, you just pay attention to the wire there. The wire used is coaxial cable, which will look somewhat like this. The advantages are, it is of course better than twisted pair cables. It is popular for TV networks and it offers high bandwidth and speed. High bandwidth and speed is obviously required because in case of this type of cables, the main requirement is video transmission, and video transmission obviously the speed should be high, and as a result we use this type of cable. What are the disadvantages? The disadvantages are that it is expensive as compared to twisted pair cable, and it is not compatible with twisted pair cable. Not compatible with twisted pair cable means, suppose we have a twisted pair cable and a coaxial cable. Let's say our total length of requirement is 10 meter, and if I have 4 meter of twisted pair cable and let's say 6 meter of coaxial cable, and if you are thinking of joining these two type of cable, then it is not possible. The entire length should be made only with coaxial cable. Next is the optical fibers, which is the best among these three. So you know the meaning of optics, means it is related to light. So it consists of thin strands of glass or glass-like material designed to carry light from one source to another. So in case of optical fibers, the transmission happens with the help of light. The source converts the data signal into light using LEDs or laser diodes and send it over the optical fiber. So you know what the signals which are present in computer, they are digital signals, but optical fibers are unable to carry digital signals, so it needs to be converted to the light signals, and this conversion is done using LEDs or laser diodes. Optical fibers, it consists of three parts: the core, the cladding, and a protective coating. So as you can see from this diagram, this is the core. The core is the area through which light travels, and this light gets reflected in this layer, as you can see here, called the cladding. And over the cladding we have another protective layer which is known as protective coating. It protects the fiber cable. So core is used to carry the light, cladding is used to reflect the light, and this protective coating, it provides extra protection to the inside core and cladding. Advantages is that it is not affected by any kind of noise. So here you will not get the problem of unwanted signals. The transmission capacity is very high. It travels at a speed of light, and it is suitable for broadband communication. And what are the disadvantages? The disadvantages are the installation requires care. So you cannot just buy optical fibers from the market and install it yourself. It requires the help of professional network engineers. Connecting two optical fibers is difficult. So let's say you require 10 meter length of cable. So if you have an optical fiber of length 4 meter and another optical fiber of length 6 meter, and if you are thinking of joining these two optical fibers, then it is not possible. The entire length of 10 meters should be done only with the help of optical fibers. Optical fibers are more difficult to solder, so you cannot connect it properly if the entire length is not of optical fibers. It is the most expensive one. So when you will ask for a broadband connection, they will ask you about the type of cable, and if you opt for optical fiber, obviously the cost will be higher as compared to the other modes of cable. Its use is in high speed local area networks, and it is used for long transmission because the attenuation is less in this type of cables. Now let us go to wireless communication. As is evident from the name, in case of wireless communication, there won't be any requirement of wires. The first type is microwaves. So microwaves are transmitted from the transmitters placed at very high towers to the receivers at a long distance. So this is a typical scenario where microwaves are used. We have two antennas. Let's say this is the transmitter and this is the receiver. Both of them are placed at a height and the signals are transmitted. In case of microwave communication, communication can happen in line of sight fashion, and also they can propagate through the surfaces. Now what is the meaning of line of sight? Line of sight means the direct path. So this is the transmitter, this is the receiver. If both of these are aligned to each other, then if the signal is transmitted directly, it is known as the direct path, and it is also known as line of sight fashion. And if the signal goes from the transmitter to receiver by reflection through different surfaces, then this is known as secondary path. So this is the secondary path. Let's say this is 1, this is 2. So 1 is the direct path and 2 is the secondary or indirect path. What are the advantages of microwaves? Obviously maintenance is easier than cables, and it is suitable for places in which cables cannot be used. So obviously cables cannot be used at all areas. So in areas where cables cannot be used, microwaves may be helpful. What are the disadvantages? Repeaters are required for long distance communication. Now repeaters will be discussed separately in a different part in this chapter only, but now I'll just discuss about repeaters in brief. Suppose this is a place A, this is a place B, and the distance is, let's say, 10 kilometer, and let's say the attenuation range of a particular type of cable is only 1 kilometer. So you know the meaning of attenuation. So after 1 kilometer the signal strength will reduce. So in order to increase the signal strength from 1 kilometer, let's say from here to here the distance is 1 kilometer. In order to increase the signal strength from 1 kilometer, you require a device which is known as repeaters. So what the repeater will do, it will increase the signal strength for another 1 kilometer. Okay, so after that you need another repeater and so on, and in this way the signals can be carried to a long distances with the help of repeaters. So as repeaters are required, so the cost will obviously be more, and less bandwidth is available in case of microwaves, hence the speed will be less. Next we go to radio waves. In case of radio waves, electromagnetic waves are propagated by an antenna. One antenna is there, and with the help of that electromagnetic waves are propagated. Radio waves have different frequencies, and by tuning into a specific frequency, a specific signal may be picked. So in case of radio waves, a particular antenna releases the signal and it is carried in different frequencies. For example, in case of FM radio, if you tune in into the frequency 92.7, you will get a radio station, and if you tune into the frequency 93.5, you will get a different radio signal. But both of these signals were there and in the atmosphere. So it's up to you to which frequency you want to tune into. So by tuning in into a specific frequency, a specific signal may be picked. Its use is in TV communication, in air traffic control, in radio communication, and in cellular communication in mobile phones. We come to the last type of wireless transmission media, which is satellites. So satellites, basically geostationary satellites, they are placed at around 36,000 kilometers from the Earth's surface. So as you can see, a geostationary satellite in the picture, it is placed at a distance of about 36,000 kilometers from the Earth's surface. So in satellite communication, the transmitting station transmits the signal to the satellite. This is called uplinking. So let me show you a diagram. So these are the transmitting station. So these stations transmit signals to the geostationary satellite. So and this phenomenon of transmitting the signals from the transmitting station to the satellite, it is known as uplinking. After that, what happens? After receiving the signals, it amplifies them and transmit back to the Earth in whole visibility area. After receiving the signal, what the geostationary satellite will do? It will amplify the signal. Means it will process the signal and then retransmit it to the Earth's surface. And this phenomenon is known as downlink. Receiving stations at different places can receive this signal, and here you can see different receiving stations are there. This I can name it as RS. So they will receive the signals which are sent by the geostationary satellites. What is the advantage of satellite? Of course, the area coverage is very large in case of satellites. So if you want to transfer from one country to a different country, then it is done with the help of satellites only. What is the disadvantage? The disadvantage is that the investment is very high. So you cannot buy a satellite personally and use it. It is basically acquired by government or by very big corporates. So I hope you have got an idea of transmission media. So stay tuned for part 3. Thank you very much.